You either love him or you hate him, but it has been decades since Chucky's character first came to our screens, and we can safely say that he is here to stay. We've watched countless Child Play movies, and now the show has just taken things to a whole new level. You're probably nodding in agreement right now if you've seen the season 2 finale, so let's look at the gore-filled episode in more depth. First off, there was blood everywhere. If you tuned into the last episode, you'll recall that it was an entire bloodbath. Even though we know that nearly every part of this season has featured horrific scenes, last week's Chucky actually still managed to stun us all, as it featured some startling moments splashed with what seemed like whole buckets of blood. Jennifer took to Twitter to provide a little sneak peek into how the dirty steps were taken to ensure the set was gushing red with blood, or something along the lines of a crimson material that would resemble blood. As always, she continued to bring the greatest behind-the-scenes glimpses to the fans. She went up to a crew member on the set of Chucky to ask about the special effects team's efforts towards pulling this off. According to him, 2 pressure vessels were packed to the brim with fake blood before being given 20 minutes to paint the walls, quote, to resemble somebody catastrophically dying. Tilly complimented the artist who had done the job so well as she walked around the room and showed us all what exactly the finished piece looked like. While giggling, she stated that he, quote, sort of really went to town, and all that blood inspired her to come up with the very creative nickname, an artist of plasma. We don't think anybody minds it though. Up till now, this season has had the highest rating the franchise has ever gotten, and maybe the show truly deserves it. Coming up, what went down in this episode? Our favorite problematic little doll decided that Christmas Eve was the perfect time to reveal to everybody that he wasn't dead following the exorcism that had been done on him in the previous episode. We mean, we're not surprised. Did anyone truly believe that the devil's spawn could actually be sent away this easily? Eventually, the doll got his hands on all the meddling kids, including Jake, Devin, and Lexi, right after he put himself into a good guy doll concealed by his now dead partner, Dr. Mixter. While Chucky was very closely connected with Halloween, which is when season 2 began, Don Mancini took advantage of the opportunity to end the season on a cliffhanger with some Yuletide happiness from the worst toy in the world. The creator of the show had a very nice comparison to make, as he mentioned that the evil doll's favorite color was blood, much like Tiffany's favorite color is diamonds, and then added that he also likes green, which makes it fantastic for Christmas. Finally, having the opportunity to garland the hallways with blood, especially that of the mayor, was exactly what they were looking for in the show. That hapless victim was the last parent left from the adolescent trio at the core of the drama, but this only lasted until Chucky helped her decorate the neighboring Christmas tree. But the orphan children weren't the kind to sit back and watch as the duo wrecked Christmas for everybody, so they retaliated. Finally, even Jake turned a bit evil this season. According to Arthur, Jake's path this season had been mostly defined by his guilt over Chucky detonating his foster brother earlier in the season when he was holding out hope for salvation, which made him believe in the potential of a good Chucky. With those expectations dashed and very few people living, Jake reverted to the darker tendencies the little monster preyed on in the first season. When he stabbed Tiffany, we could all see the wicked look in his eyes. The actor explained how this was the first time we saw the kids engage in violent behavior towards others, and given everything that had occurred, it wasn't a stretch to believe that the 3 siblings might take a darker turn. By the time the episode ended, they'd found some peace in Miss Fairchild's return, who was their previous teacher and had been accused of Chucky's killings. While happy, Zachary observed that Miss F was a reminder of how few people are still alive in the show. While talking about this dynamic, the creator of the show emphasized the loneliness of these children as he used their dependence on her to demonstrate that they had nobody else to rely on. All of this would drive anyone mad, let alone a bunch of kids who have to navigate through this threat on their own. Now moving on to an in-depth review of the finale. To start with, this one truly stands out. The final episode, titled Chucky Actually, presented a disturbing Christmas theme that could easily pave the way for a 3rd season. The Killer Doll series finale showed us all that this season was at its best when it departed from the Catholic school environment and started focusing on the personalities and connections that developed in the first season. It took us back to the beginnings of the Child's Play franchise while still dutifully suggesting a path for the series to redeem itself through a possible 3rd season, and with most of the season's riddles already resolved, this episode can take a unique relevance to the franchise. What's more is that we saw a total of 3 plot lines being explored throughout this episode. The very first one is Chucky's fate. All of a sudden, an end to the the doll is revealed to be less certain than the orphans had hoped in last week's faux conclusion, which allowed him to continue exploring his relationship with Dr. Mixter. We know very little about what's going on between those two, considering how it has only been hinted at cryptically throughout the series. Moving on from that, Tiffany, Glenda, and Glenn are the subjects of the second tale explored in the finale, as it delves into the consequences of Glenn's killing and the unavoidable decision now thrust upon Glenda and Tiffany. Finally, Chucky gets straight to his business with Jake, Devin, and Lexi now that they are no longer enslaved by the Catholic school, which also means that they are no longer protected. Moving on, there were quite a few plot twists. We can't say that all of the twists in the episode were mind-blowing because we'd be lying. Still, some of them did manage to positively confuse us, and Caroline was the most perplexing surprise of all. After Chucky brutally murdered her mother, she repaid the debt by killing the doll with the same chainsaw. Instead of grieving her mother, the girl became stoic and said that he had warned her about her true mother arriving one day. Rather than siding with the rest of the kids who had tried to defend her from Chucky, she joined Tiffany and left the house with her. This alteration in her character wasn't that shocking given her stoicism and blind worship of the doll were no better than Sister Ruth's. But because she featured in only a few episodes, this step felt a bit too abrupt. As the title implies, the episode was also rife with references to many films, especially the older ones from the franchise. Tiffany and Glenda's attempts to reinsert Glenn into the doll reactivated the Voodoo for Dummies book, though last week's episode also mildly referenced the ceremonial bride of Chucky's sequence. Making a last-ditch attempt to install herself in the doll that the girl was given by Dr. Mixter, Tiffany simply went ahead with the process, but instead of a clean soul transfer, she was forced to confront her other half yet again as Chucky's spirit was seen rising from the doll. Oops, that must have hurt. Finally, a growing enemy list. The evil doll may have never been able to grow in height, but his enemy list kept growing throughout. Apart from the youngsters who always managed to elude him and Tiffany, who had repeatedly betrayed him, the doll identified Glenn and Glenda as prospective victims. He appeared to be unaware that the spirits of both have been put back into their dolls, which will make it exceptionally harder for him to track them, and obviously, he'll need to know where they are to hurt them for what they did. The realization that the doll is still alive would have also compelled Kyle and Andy to come back to the series. And we're all sitting there, hoping that Chucky's list of enemies keeps growing so that we never have to stop getting our regular murderous doll dose on the TV. This season indeed remained underwhelming in some parts, but the ending managed to redeem it in a lot of ways. A possible season 3 means that the show makers are learning from their experiences and are trying to think out of the box with the villain as well as the other characters. The concept of Chucky has held a lot of potential forever, especially for horror fans. Speaking of season 3, we simply can't wait for that stuff to begin. If the next season is even close to being as gory and violent as this one, we are all in for a ride. And that's a wrap, folks. What part of the season 2 finale was your favorite? Please tell us in the comments below. And as always, make sure to click that like button and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more updates about your favorite movies and shows. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.